also like to look at that, and I think it's kind of the same idea of the scanning the grocery items idea is that kind of details up processing. In my experience, at least, that idea of having to like examine all the details to then come to a conclusion about what it is they're thinking about or what decisions they have to make or what the day is going to look like. So it's different where a neurotypical will look at the big picture first and then drill down into details if necessary. So like if we walk into a room, we might be able to say, oh, that's that person, that person, that person, and everybody's sitting down and writing. So I should come in quiet and sit down and write without going, you walk into a room and see, why is there 6 pieces of paper on the table? Why do people have pencils in their hands? Why, whatever, right? We kind
Yeah,
of go
why is
from the
that person
bottom up
sitting
to
in my
make a
seat?
conclusion
Yeah.
that, oh, we're taking a test today or something like that, right? So, I guess the one of those, I guess, call it a superpower or a potential benefit of that is being very detailed focused and being able to see things differently. That if a neurotypical person kind of comes in, we make a lot of assumptions, right? Our brain screens a lot of things, a lot of information. Like you're saying, all the stimulus that's around you right now, your brain can
Yeah.
filter that. And maybe the pigeons are about to do something really scary and you wouldn't pay attention. But that idea of, you know, we come in and just make some assumptions about what's happening. And most of the time that's probably accurate, but it's cognitively efficient to do that, right? To tune
Yeah.
out a lot of stuff, make assumptions, and then move forward. And then if there's something really unusual, then we'll focus in on that and kind of drill down into the detail. Whereas, neurodivergent kids or young adults or whatever, it's harder. It's like got to process what's happening detail by detail first and then build the picture, so to speak. And
Yeah.
again, for problem solving and things like that, that can be really, really helpful if you have the time to solve a problem. That's probably a really efficient way to do it in terms of accuracy, but it's not as cognitively efficient in terms of just coming in, making some assumptions and moving on. So I do think it's part of that on the edge cognitively and sensorially all the time. Like there's just so much information that has to be dealt with. And so I think that's probably some of the time why changing routines is so hard. Like they had anticipated, they already done all the work, they built the model in their head about what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, here comes a new piece of information that doesn't fit into their plan or what they anticipated the day to go like, or the hour to go like, or the minute to go like, right? So,
Yeah, and I think it's really, I love how I use that same example, kind of big picture to detail and then detail to big picture. So think about, right, if you're processing things one at a time, and if you're going into a situation thinking it's going to turn out this way, here's the 5 things that I've already processed that, I know. If you've thrown a new thing in there, it's not just that one new thing that they have to process. They now have to kind of start over and
rebuild the
figure
whole
out
ship kind of thing.
where that fits. And they kind of have to rescan all the groceries, if you will, to figure out how does this work, what does this impact, and does this one new factor then change anything else? And if it does, then what are the potential outcomes for that? And kind of working through all those scenarios. Again, our brains, a neurotypical brain, can do that because we're also not so worried about what that new outcome, right? We feel we probably are equipped to handle whatever kind of new input just came at us. They don't feel that confident.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean,
That
again, like I said, it's a lot of work to get where they're
a lot of
at
work.
and to stay where they're at, right? So it's
Yeah, and
like,
that's exhausting. Think about how exhausting, like how much just mental energy it takes to kind of get through that. And that alone is gonna, right, put you closer to that edge of pushing over. So yeah, I think we just have to be patient and compassionate and right. No matter how frustrating it is on the parent side of things, guarantee you it's way harder on their end.
yeah, and
Um,
again, that is one of those golden things that parents can hang on to and understand. Like, as hard as this is for me, they're having a way worse day than I am right now. You
way
know what I
harder
mean?
time.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just frustrated with my kid in that moment. But my kid is frustrated by whatever that situation is. And now my kid has to be frustrated with me because I'm frustrated, right? And I'm just making it
Right.
a
Not
thousand
only are
times
you
worse.
a
Yeah.
variable that's intruding on them, but you are a caustic variable. You're a
Yeah, right. I'm
hostile
causing
variable at that
problems
point.
here.
You're
Yeah.
creating the problem, right? So
And I think it's good. I mean, I think that's a way to think about it. We used to talk about kind of that paramedic response of like, how can I make this worse?
Right.
And then, okay, don't do that. I know when I say this particular thing, or if I don't give my kid that heads up at the gas station, I know I've just made the next 15 minutes worse for everybody. So I have to always be aware, hey, what do I need to do to help this go right or well or as smoothly as possible? And yeah, what do I need
Yeah,
to
and
avoid
it's
doing?
yeah, and again, in all fairness to parents, it's a lot of work to be always anticipating, right? And
Yeah,
sometimes you learn by trial and error. You run into a situation you haven't seen before. Oh wow, that was a landmine. There's a landmine over there. I didn't know it. We stepped on
yep,
it.
didn't see it.
So
Yeah,
yeah, like if you didn't know the gas station was going to be a problem, then you wouldn't think to do that. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a problem. And so maybe next time you try to adjust. But yes, that is a
yeah.
lot of
You
work, for
remember, you
parents.
remember, oh, gas station, big problem. Yeah. My son
Yep.
used to hate the dividers. We were using the grocery store. He used to hate the dividers in the grocery store, like between the two orders. And it took me a million years to figure that one out. I was like, why would that bother him? But it did. So I just had to like ask people, like, please don't put the divider there. Yeah, that one was a hard one too. That was a total landmine that I did not see.
Yeah, yeah. And so you never know. And again, it speaks to how it's so different for each kid too, even
Mhm.
within the autism spectrum or the neurodivergent. So just because advice works for one thing or something's triggering for one kid doesn't mean it's going to be triggering for
Yeah.
another kid. And again, it's so unique. So that idea of I think I like talking about it like you have to gain like a knowledge of what neurodiversity means or neurodivergence means so that you can then figure out how it applies to your particular son or daughter because again traditional parenting stuff is kind of out the window, but
Yeah.
even if you're approaching your son or daughter with a neurodivergent informed parenting mindset, so to speak, by understanding where some of these struggles are coming from or whatever, that then you have to figure out, okay, well, how does that now work? You know what I mean, for my kids, like
Yeah, and that's always the first thing I recommend parents do, like particularly if you're getting that autism diagnosis or ADHD diagnosis, whatever that diagnosis is, if you're getting it later on, right? The burden on parents is kind of twofold, like you're saying, right? You need to understand, generally speaking, hey, where'd that diagnosis come from? Why does my kid meet those criteria? Again, big picture. And then the parents do have to drill in on the detail and know where are the spots that my kid is particularly vulnerable? Where are the places where he's going to be or she's going to be more reactive or less reactive? My son, oddly enough, we moved all the way across the country and he was like, whatever, this is our new house. Like that kind of stuff, right? The mindset normally like that would, totally panic a kid on the spectrum. My kid's odd
yeah,
in
one of
that
those
sense.
things.
That's the one thing he doesn't like. He can just go to this is our new house now, and this is where we live. And he was like, okay, here's my
Yeah.
stuff, and he was fine.
Cool.
And I remember when he changed schools when he was really young. We moved to a different school district, and the autism consultant for the program like videotaped like getting off the bus and walking into the building, and was super anticipatory of like this is going to be hard for him. And he was just like, what? Whatever. And he just strolled on in, and
Yep.
that was his new home. So, right, that kind of generalized kids on the spectrum are going to have this reaction. Not
You don't
mine.
know till you know,
Like,
right? Yeah.
yeah, you need to become an expert on your kid's version of autism. I mean, there's that joke, right? If you've met one kid with autism, you've met one kid with autism. Everything is going to be different for them, and it only matters what your kid needs.